Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, like, join it or something.
Hey everyone, Lucamus Prime here. So, it's time for the next episode of series of Old is Better Than New. And in today's video, I'm going to be covering this as an example of a horror franchise, where I'd say that in my opinion, the old films of this franchise are better than the new. This is a franchise where, of course, its original film is one of my favourite horror films of all time, and is in my opinion one of the best films ever made. And this film also is, in my opinion, the film that helps define the slasher part of horror franchises. And it's, to me, an absolute masterpiece, with, in my opinion, only one great sequel as far as I'm concerned. And this film franchise, where, in my opinion, the old is better than the new, is none other than the franchise of Halloween. So, you guys, of course, going to ask me, of course, what I think of the original film. Well, I absolutely love the original film. It's one of my favourite horror films of all time. To me, it's the definitive slasher movie, which helped, of course, make the genre so popular. And I think also helped to reinvigorate its popularity after, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was also released before this. Like, Halloween from 1978, the original film is an absolute masterpiece, and, in my opinion, timeless in every possible way, and just a masterpiece in cinema, as far as I'm concerned. With great characters, for example, Laurie Strode, the main character, who's one of my favourite movie characters of all time, and my favourite of all time for Jamie Lee Curtis. And with also great supporting characters, for example, Dr. Samuel Loomis, who is easily my favourite role of Donald Pleasence, may he rest in peace. And Michael Myers, also known as The Shape, is also, in my opinion, one of the greatest movie villains of all time as well. One of the examples of a villain who doesn't need to say anything, but can be absolutely terrifying nonetheless. And Michael Myers is definitely a massive example of that. Like, he's just absolutely terrifying, and this film definitely nails him as a character, in my opinion. And in my opinion, nobody can embody Michael Myers better than Nick Castle. To me, he is Michael Myers. And this film is just an absolute masterpiece. And then when it comes, of course, to the first of its sequels, Halloween 2 from 1981 is probably my second favourite Halloween movie of all time. And I think it's almost as great as the original movie. And it's definitely, in my opinion, lots of fun to watch, like the first movie certainly is. And I think it's definitely, in my opinion, a great continuation from the first film, the terrifying cliffhanger. And I would also argue, and I've already said this on my ranking video for franchise, and in my video on why Halloween 2 did not need sequels, that to me, Halloween 2 is the end of the Halloween story. Because this film does what many films lack nowadays, and it's give a great ending and closure. Because at the end of the film, Michael Myers is defeated by Laurie and Sam Loomis, where, of course, he gets burned alive, and he gets engulfed in flames, and he collapses. So, as far as I'm concerned, Michael Myers burned to death in that scene and didn't come back. That's what I'll say. To me, Halloween franchise ends there. And sadly, since this film, I really think the franchise really has hit hard times, unfortunately. The first film that came after this film, released a year later, was Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, I personally would say this film is very mediocre compared to the first two films. And it's not because Michael's not in the film, because, as far as I'm concerned, Michael Myers is dead, so the reason why he should have came back at all. But what they replaced him with was, in my opinion, really weird. And that was, like, androids made in a factory by, of course, the Silver Shamrock Company, which also makes, of course, pumpkin masks. Stuff like that. Now, while I think that Conal Cochran and his team, who were making the masks and the robots, were sinister villains, they were, in my opinion, a very weird addition to a Halloween franchise. They could have brought up something more supernatural than that, really, to fit into, like, the horror genre. Because, like, last time I checked, Halloween's not a sci-fi franchise, it's horror. So that was, in my opinion, a very weird change. But the film was just okay at best, really. But unfortunately, after this, we then got a somewhat of a movie trilogy in which Michael Myers came back. And that, of course, was known as the Return Trilogy, being Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, Revenge of Michael Myers, and Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. And unfortunately, that trilogy, in my opinion, made Michael's defeat in the second film pointless because he came back. It also made out that Laurie got killed off screen, which I was very angry about because I love Laurie as a character. And the characters in these films, I just couldn't really connect to compared to Laurie. Like, why is it that these films have such a weak protagonist in them when you compare them to Laurie Strode? Like, she's one of the best characters of all time. And when compared to these ones, she's much better. And then after this, in 1998, we then got another film, which did bring back Laurie, and that was Halloween H20, 20 years later. Laurie came back, and it acts as a direct sequel to the first two films. But even so, while it might have been slightly more watchable than the Return trilogy, in my opinion, and more than Season of the Witch, it still, in my opinion, didn't really feel needed because, as far as I'm concerned, Halloween 2 gave a great ending and closure to the franchise. That's what I'll say, really, about H20. It's still watchable, in my opinion, but unfortunately, though, of course, 4 years later, we got what is probably, for me, the worst of a franchise, and for me, one of the worst films of all time. Not just the worst of a franchise, but for me, it's one of the worst films of all time, and that's Halloween Resurrection. Or as I'll call it, Halloween Assurrection, or Pissurrection, whatever you want to call it, because Resurrection is a massive disgrace to a franchise. It ruins lots of beloved characters. It ruins Laurie and Michael, because get this, it gives Laurie the alien-free cliche at the start of the film, where she gets killed off early into the film. And it makes H20's ending, where she beheads Michael, meaningless, because it turns out Michael somehow faked his death, but it makes no sense whatsoever, because it was clearly Michael she was beheading in H20's ending, not someone else. So it made no sense how he came back in Resurrection at all. And killing off Laurie was where the film died for me, and making Michael's defeat pointless, yeah, the film died right there. It was dead the moment they killed off Laurie. And when it comes to a character introduced in the film, they were, in my opinion, terrible. Like, because compared to Laurie, who's such a likeable, fun character to watch in the first two films, the characters we had in this were terrible. Like, Dougie Dagan started from Freddy. Like, Freddy in particular was just insufferable. And everyone else, I couldn't care less about. They just really did my head in. Yeah, Halloween Resurrection is a massive jolt to the franchise. Just not how you do a horror film at all. Just a massive disgrace. Compared to the first two films, the storytelling is abysmal. Then after this film, we then got two remakes directed by Rob Zombie, Halloween and Halloween 2. But unfortunately, compared to the first two films, and just almost like, of course, Resurrection, these two films, in my opinion, were trash. Because I saw them and I didn't like either of them. Like, because these films, they basically have the exact same cliches you can expect in a Rob Zombie film, which is, of course, an overbloating of swearing beyond all belief, which his films are known for. Like, it just felt out of place in the films, in my opinion. And when it comes to the actors playing the new characters, some of them were good in the first movie. Like, for example, I did like Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis. And Michael was okay in the first film, in my opinion, but still, in my opinion, does not come close to Nick Castle, in my opinion. And the only character I liked in both the films was Sheriff Brackett, played by Brad Dourif. He was probably, in my opinion, the only likeable character in the two films, as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to the worst two films, well, for me, it was Halloween 2. And I would especially say the Dreader's Cut is much worse, because the ending completely masks Michael because he talks, and because he literally yells out, "Die." And that just completely masks the character. And in my opinion, we did not need a film talking about Michael's origin story, because Dr. Loomis' monologue in the original movie about who Michael Myers is told me all I needed to know about who Michael is as a character. I didn't need a film about how he became Michael Myers. No. It was totally unnecessary, in my opinion. And, like, all I can say is, screw Halloween Resurrection and Rob Zombie's remakes all the way. They're definitely, in my opinion, terrible movies, especially Halloween 2 when it comes to Rob Zombie's remakes. After this, the franchise then was quiet for several years, until 9 years later when they decided to make another Halloween film. Because one thing that's really dumb about this franchise is, it doesn't know when to end, because they keep making remakes, reboots, direct sequels. It's just so stupid, in my opinion, the direction it's going in, really. Going in all different directions, and it really gets on my nerves. This film released in 2018 was simply called Halloween, so the same title as the original film, so that's really confusing. But it was probably, in my opinion, the best thing we got since, the first two films, in my opinion, because I thought it was pretty good. But unfortunately, it ignored Halloween 2, which really sucks. Because Halloween 2, in my opinion, is the best of the sequels. So I was very disappointed that they didn't acknowledge it in this film, really. That really got on my nerves a lot. But it was still, in my opinion, more watchable compared to, of course, what came before it after Halloween 2. But sadly, however, though, of course, in 2021, my enjoyment of these films got even more less thanks to Halloween Kills' theatrical version, because I saw that and I was very disappointed because it really annoyed me a lot. The characters, in my opinion, were atrocious. And the other things I liked in the film were the kills, because that's what I come for when seeing a Michael Myers horror movie, because he's a slasher killer, of course. But other than that, the film just really wasn't good in its physical version, with lots of questions unanswered and plot holes. Thankfully, the extended version was much better because it had the questions answered, thankfully, and it avoided plot holes. So I really appreciate the extended version for, of course, fixing those issues. To me, it's the true version of Halloween Kills. The theatrical version, in my opinion, is rubbish. But then a year later, though, the franchise then had another film, which appears to be the end of the franchise, but based on, of course, how many films they've done, I doubt it's going to be the end, because that film, of course, is Halloween Ends. I saw this film, and I was really disappointed with this film. Like, you call this the end of Michael and Laurie's story, just disappointing. The only thing, in my opinion, worth watching for this film, guys, is the film's second half, where Michael actually appears. Because get this, despite this being what's supposed to be Michael's last film, he barely appears in the film. And instead has a really dumb subplot about a character called Corey, who I could not connect to. I didn't know who he was. I don't even know why they introduced him in the first place. That was just, in my opinion, a really dumb move. So, if you cut him out and you watch the second half of the film with Michael, and of course Laurie's final confrontation, then the film is good. But the first half of the film is not good, in my opinion, because of Corey. And the film, of course, ends with Michael being defeated by Laurie at last, and then his body gets put in the grinder. So as far as I'm concerned, that, of course, is the end of Michael Myers. But based on, of course, this franchise, it looks like they're still going to be, of course, making more films anyway. And I don't even doubt it. Like, they really aren't going to stop all making this film based on, of course, how many they've done. So, if they announce a new film, I'm not going to be surprised at all. So, all I can say, of course, is that Halloween, in my opinion, was only best as the first two films, and that's it, really, because they got everything right, being the horror, the characters, the story, everything, in my opinion. As far as I'm concerned, and I like to pretend that those ones are all the things they did in a franchise. So, Halloween Ends was just not how you end a franchise at all, and based on, of course, the track record I've seen of horror franchises is still going, they're probably going to make more films, but yeah. If they are right now, I personally don't care in the slightest. I'll stick to the actually good Halloween films instead. So guys, this week over the next episode of Always Better Than You, I was saying why, in my opinion, the Halloween franchise was better in older than new. So, you know the drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to put in the comments what you guys think of Halloween, doing Always Better Than You for a franchise. Leave anything in the comments below. Also, be sure to join Team Prime by pressing subscribe videos coming in the future. And happy Halloween.